Hello, New Paltz. Welcome to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. I'm here every Friday at 2 talking movies, new reviews, recommendations, lists. I just love movies, and that's what I do here. On today's show, I'm going to review Benny Safdie's new movie, The Smashing Machine, give you my 10 favorite movie characters of all time, and close out the show with my 3 throwback recommendations for the week. I'll be right back with my review for The Smashing Machine, but first here's some movie music, starting with the main title from Good Will Hunting by Danny Elfman. Welcome back to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. Kicking off the show today, I have a review for Benny Safdie's new movie, The Smashing Machine. This movie came out last week, but I wasn't here for the show, so we're doing it this week. I haven't seen Tron Ares yet, but when I do, I'll take that and a few other movies I've missed throughout the year so far, and do a few quick reviews for those in a couple of weeks. But anyway, The Smashing Machine stars Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt in the true story of MMA fighter Mark Kerr and his rise and personal life through the world of MMA. This is also the first movie Benny Safdie directed solo. He previously directed the movies Good Time and Uncut Gems with his brother Josh, and I like both those movies, so his name made this interesting to me on top of Dwayne Johnson's more transformative performance. He's not just playing himself or just kind of the same action character he usually plays. Looks like he's playing more of a character and a complicated real person in this movie. And this movie features what is easily his best performance, great supporting performances by Emily Blunt and Ryan Bader, but has many story problems that make it less engaging for me. And starting with Dwayne Johnson, it's really nice to see him in a deeper role like this that makes him become more of a different character. And really the whole movie, I saw him as Mark Kerr and not as The Rock. I don't know of the real Mark Kerr or this story before the movie, so I can't speak to his accuracy of who he's portraying, but he brings a lot of emotion to this character. He's this strong titan in the ring that loves to win and feels no greater joy in life than beating another man in combat. But outside of the ring, this translates to a lot of toxicity in who he is and his relationships. He struggles with seeking help and communicating and some drug and alcohol issues, and overall hates being treated in a way that he takes as people calling him weak or incapable, and has a very short temper with people as well. His dominance in the ring gives him the feeling of capability that he strives to have in all areas of his life, and to feel in control at all times. And this leads to tension in his relationship with his girlfriend Dawn in this movie, played by Emily Blunt. Their relationship is really toxic, and they both have such short tempers and start shouting so quickly when they argue. There's different points in the movie where he gets angry when she's trying to be supportive because he feels like she's calling him weak, but then there's times where she'll react disproportionately, as well as insult and go after him in cruel ways that make them very unpleasant in many scenes. The performances together are really great. Blunt shows the genuine concern, but also the anger and cruelty she shows back as well. These scenes are intense. You believe they care about each other, but also that their negative qualities fit together just so horribly. And the performances and characters are interesting, but these argument scenes also begin to feel very repetitive and out of nowhere at times as well. There's so many scenes where they'll fight, and it feels like what they're fighting about doesn't feel like it was developed enough in the story beforehand to really make me care. There's a bunch of things that come up, like his drug and alcohol addictions and his time in rehab, and her feeling like he doesn't want her around. But it all feels very on the surface. It doesn't feel like it's developed enough. The arguments begin to all sound the same, and even when it reaches a climactic point towards the end, it doesn't feel like the build-up was enough because they've been arguing the whole movie. This particular argument scene didn't feel like it was approaching a big moment or it was some breaking point. And again, these scenes are all really well acted, and Johnson and Blunt bring so much intensity, but it was hard to get invested in this relationship when they're so toxic for the whole movie, and the arguments feel underdeveloped and really unpleasant. And that relationship makes up so much of the runtime that it really starts to feel nasty without having the depth to make it more engaging. That kind of lost me at certainly different points in the middle of the movie. And let's talk about some of the MMA side of this story. There's a number of fights throughout that are really well directed and have a lot of hard hits to them that make you feel the impact of every blow from these guys. Dwayne Johnson's physique and wrestling background certainly brings a lot to the effectiveness of these scenes, and the fights give another aspect of conflict that does tie into his personal life during the movie. There's times where what happens in the ring is affected by his personal struggles and vice versa, but I think developing these outer ring struggles better would have made the competition moments where they tie in hit stronger emotionally. The balance of MMA scenes is good though, and there's a good amount of fights here that are really well done. One character in Mark's life I found really interesting is Ryan Bader as Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman is another pioneer of this sport that is Kerr's friend and trainer in this movie. The character works really well as a friend character, but also has some of his own stuff going on in the story, like his family life a little bit. He's a friend to Kerr that gets seriously concerned about him and his struggles. But for his own investment in the story, he's also a competing fighter that is competing in this big MMA tournament in Japan that acts as the third act of this movie. And he's kind of at the end of his career and wants to prove that he still has it. And he has a family that the large prize money could do a lot for. He's a character that was really well-rounded. I wish had maybe a little more development with his side of the story, just because he seemed so interesting with what they gave him. It seems like he's not around for a while for a stretch in the middle, but he was always an interesting character when he was on screen, and Ryan Bader's performance makes the character very down-to-earth and calming as this supportive kind of friend/mentor to Kerr, but also as a fighter in the ring. He brings a lot of the fight and passion to the character that you would expect from a pioneer in a sport like this. More on the third act. Having the tournament be the finale made sense, as it is in a lot of sports movies. You build up to a big final event, final competition. But it would have been nice to have that been highlighted more as a bigger deal throughout the movie, that this is what he's training for, this is kind of what it's all building to. So his personal conflict and the sports side of things kind of all build to this point. It doesn't feel like what the whole story is leading to for most of the movie, so when you get there, the emotions aren't super strong. Other things like a training montage and another trainer character introduced towards the end feel super rushed and underdeveloped, so having the fight be more impactful as the finale and as Mark's goal at the end would have helped make some of the story more engaging. The training montage stuff felt very thrown in at the end, like they needed to have him getting ready before the fight, and it just didn't hit as hard emotionally as those scenes are often so able to do. And another thing I didn't care for too much is some of the style and the camera work. The movie is filmed in a lot of scenes with handheld cams that kind of give it a documentary footage feel, like you're watching them in their homes or at these fights through the eyes of a camera crew. I see the style behind it. It's like you see these fighters, these athletes in the ring, in their fields, and then this movie is kind of showing his personal life, so it's like if a crew, the cameras followed him home, it kind of gives that vibe, which I did appreciate a little bit. But for the most part, it was distracting for me, and also made scenes feel more drawn out and slow, and it gave the movie a feel that made me less invested. I got used to it a little bit as it went along, but it was just a style thing I didn't really care for that just distracted me too much more than anything. On some more positive, though, the makeup and prosthetics for Dwayne Johnson to make him look more like the real Mark Kerr are really good and give another layer of immersion to watching this character and his story. The credits have pictures of the real Mark Kerr, who I didn't know what he looked like before seeing them, but it's a really impressive how they made Johnson look a lot like him, with kind of his jaw and his nose, and adds more to making him the character besides the performance, which does a lot of the work, of course, too. The look isn't everything, of course. Johnson really does transform as an actor and into this character that really the whole movie I wasn't thinking of his other movies, of The Rock. He really just did become this character, and I would love it if he did more performances like this, and even strengthening that his acting abilities, as Dave Bautista has done with things like past tracks like Knock at the Cabin with M. Night Shyamalan. I thought he was great in. John Cena's really grown as an actor with Peacemaker. I would love The Rock to do the same, because it seems like he has a lot of talent and he could develop it even more if he keeps taking roles like this with some great directors too. Overall, The Smashing Machine is a decent sports drama that features some great performances and impressive transformation from Dwayne Johnson and some great MMA fights, but the story and drama felt too shallow, leading to a lot of unpleasant scenes with low development. It's definitely the Benny Safdie movie I felt the least engaged in, especially with how gripping Good Time and Uncut Gems are. While this certainly is a different genre from those, I felt much less invested, and it became just tiresome at points. I give it a 62 out of 100. I still recommend seeing it if you like sports dramas or want to see something different from Dwayne Johnson or have liked the Safdie brothers' other movies. But definitely not as strong of a movie as I hoped it would be. I'll be right back on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale, but first here's some more movie music, starting with Manhattan Project by Ludwig Göransson from the Oppenheimer soundtrack. Welcome back to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. Next up today, I'm going to give you my 10 favorite movie characters of all time. This includes heroes, villains, everyone in the middle, main characters, supporting characters, just the 10 movie characters that help make my favorite movies some of my favorites. I will spoil some of the movies for these characters, so be aware if you haven't seen their movie. At number 10, I have Dr. King Schultz from Django Unchained. Christoph Waltz kills this role. I needed a Tarantino character on this list, and this character always stands out to me every time I watch this movie. He's so funny and very nonchalant about his job as a bounty hunter, and how he deals with dangerous situations that make him so captivating in every scene. You get so impressed with how he can talk or shoot his way out of almost any situation, and he's so smart and logical in how he shuts people down and is able to reason with people in ways like, alright, I can't even argue with you there. But his relationship with Django is great, seeing these guys rescue Django's wife, and the shake my hand scene with him and DiCaprio's character is one of the movie's best. The character's very funny and cool, but he also has values that he upholds, and one of those is despising slavery, and how he takes out DiCaprio is so awesome, and how he can't stop himself from taking him out in a very theatrical fashion. He just despises this guy. Shaking his hand is just too far away from his values, even in this performative setting. So he just has to go, and the way he does it with the gun up his sleeve is just so awesome, and is a great callback to earlier in the movie. This character is fun and not to be messed with, and Waltz definitely deserved that Oscar. At number 9, I have Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise's character from the Mission Impossible franchise. This franchise is more about the thrills and the stunts than the characters, certainly, but Ethan still has a great arc throughout the movies that ends very well in the final reckoning. The first two movies don't do much with him as a character. You don't really know too much about him personally or who he really is necessarily. But the third movie fleshes out his life as a spy and how he maintains relationships and friendships. And the theme of friendship and sacrifice becomes key going into the later films with him that really do expand him as a character and start to feel like he's the same person in every movie. He has this fear of those closest to him dying, and him feeling like the weight of their lives rests on him solely, as well as the lives of people around the globe. And how he is unquestionably willing to let himself die if his friends can live because of it is really powerful. Luther, Benji, Ilsa all end up feeling like a family to him and not just co-workers, but the people in his life that he does everything he can protect, including putting millions of lives at stake by trying to have it both ways, trying to save their lives and trying to protect everyone around the world when really in his job he's told, you can't have it both ways, your team is expendable. He refuses to accept that time and time again he is able to save them in really impossible ways, and it's just really great to see how loyal he is to his friends. The final reckoning does highlight, though, how many lives he saved and all he's done to protect the world on these crazy missions, putting his life in so much danger in these insanely dangerous and death-defying situations, and coming to an ending where he can find satisfaction and peace in the choices he's made, and all he's done is a really, really great way to end things for him. I thought this was a great ending for his character. At number 8, I have John Wick from the John Wick franchise. My favorite revenge action character, Keanu Reeves doesn't have to say much as this character, but the demeanor and how terrifying he can make him is so legendary with the stunt work and just the physique and the face he puts on. You believe this guy can walk into a room and strike fear into people, and the world building and performance capture that so well. I love how even the mention of his name in these movies makes people terrified, and how the legend of the Baba Yaga has struck every soul of this criminal underworld. You hear the name and you just shudder in fear and hope he's not coming after you. Having him step back into the underworld on a revenge mission and how much anger he's acting on is so engaging in the first film, and seeing him plunge deeper into danger and having to survive becomes really interesting in the later films as he's got the contract on his head, and it becomes a lot about survival, but also him finding a way to move past this world again, find some peace, find a life again after the underworld as he did before. His sadness over his wife's death let you connect with him more deeply for such an impossibly dangerous man. Where things go from there and how crazy his adventures get are very unrelatable, but starting this franchise with him as a grieving man, pushed too far and needing to get justice for his wife and his dog, helps ground the character and human emotion a little bit. And how he ends with finding some peace in death and settling things was a nice place to end things. Apparently they're doing a 5th movie though. I'm not sure how that's going to be. We'll see how it works, but these 4 movies give him a really cool arc, and I also liked his appearance in Ballerina this year. At number 7, I have a duo. It's Andy Dufresne and Ellis Red Redding from The Shawshank Redemption. This is probably the best movie friendship of all time. The way these two men meet at such seemingly hopeless points in their lives, facing life in prison, and how their differing experiences shape them is so fascinating. Red has kind of accepted his place in prison and that this is where he is now, and why waste time hoping and dreaming of the outside and all the beauty that's out there when he'll never get to see it, never get to experience it. And Andy comes in as this new guy that sees the value and beauty in hope and how the idea of getting out is never impossible, and that hope is, as the movie says, perhaps the best thing, and that really helps them keep their humanity, still feel like free men, even in this place where they just seem to have no hope of escape. Keeping that hope alive is key. And I love the scene of Andy playing the music and the men feeling free for a little bit, and it's how Andy is able to inspire Red and all the inmates he's in prison with to hope, and how their friendship helps them through these difficult years together that makes them amazing, and why I didn't want to include one without the other on this list. An all-time great movie friendship and an all-time great movie. At number 6, I have Terrence Fletcher from Whiplash. J.K. Simmons absolutely earned his Oscar here. There's so much to this character that makes him a great villain. He believes fully in what he's doing. At this music school, abusing students he identifies as the next potential great musician, and relentlessly tormenting them to try to push them to their fullest. No matter the consequences, he believes that finding the next great is worth the abuse and mental health problems, and that if he didn't do all this, if he didn't push his students like this, and they were destined to become a great, and because he didn't push them, they weren't able to, he feels that is a tragedy, and that any problems that his students suffer from his teachings are worth it if they become one of the great musicians of all time. And the scene later in the movie at the bar where he explains this to Andrew shows Simmons' range in this role, showing that his anger and cruelty is a tool to him that only has his students' best interests at heart in his mind. The way he uses things he knows about Andrew to insult him and make him feel terrible about himself to try to push him to get better at drumming is so manipulative, especially as Andrew told him this in kind of like seemingly a safe space, and how he's using that against him later in these abusive scenes. It's a great example of how ruthless he is, and how Andrew in this movie responds to him, getting fearful and frustrated and pushing himself to his limits, shows the effect he has on his students, and the finale of Andrew giving into Fletcher's methods, and maybe he'll be a great, but he's lost so much of himself on that mission, and relationships he's cut off, and all that he's lost. But Fletcher now has his legend, and that's all that matters to him. He's so menacing. Yes, Simmons' rage is so intense, but the more calculating part of the character and his ideology make him so terrifying and dangerous. At number 5, I have Marty McFly from the Back to the Future trilogy. Michael J. Fox as this character is so enjoyable. He's wacky and fun and so magnetic to follow on these time travel adventures. His friendship with Doc is so exciting, and how he always finds himself in these crazy predicaments throughout time is endlessly fun throughout the trilogy. That said, he's also a pretty deep character that I really connect with. Especially in the first movie, he has this fear of rejection and worrying that he's not good enough with his music, and that he's able to grow with as he meets his father in the past, and helping him gain confidence. That, as someone that worries about things like that sometimes, really connects with me, and it's nice to see this character having growth along with the movie and character being really fun as well. At number 4, I have Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. my favorite comic book movie villain and an outstanding performance. The character is just a force of chaos that wants to show the worst of Gotham City, and that even the greatest of people can fall to villainy. His role in the story works so well with Harvey Dent as this force of good that he wants to bring out the darkest parts of, and how he works with these other mob bosses make him so unpredictable. His scenes with Batman are great and show how smart and ahead this character is. The scene in the interrogation room with Batman beating him and just laughing hysterically is insane, and one of the movie's most intense moments that truly makes you feel like this character is just an unstoppable force that has every contingency in place and just can't be reasoned with. He just wants to watch the world burn, and it's terrifying. Ledger just kills it here, and the voice and mannerisms are so captivating, and every scene with him is iconic and something that you just can't look away from. He's also very funny. The scene with the pencil and his dark humor and jokes he makes while committing unspeakable acts just makes him so memorable, and he really just steals this movie almost in a movie with so many amazing performances and characters. Just a powerful force in this story that helps make The Dark Knight one of the greats. At number 3, I have Rocky Balboa from the Rocky and Creed franchise. This character has been around for so long, and Stallone has done so much with him over the years. I love his underdog story and seeing him start to believe in himself and give it his all against Apollo Creed, and seeing his rise to fame, and then later in life as he settled down and lost some people in his life, but then meeting Adonis and becoming a trainer and father figure to him was a great place to take him later in the franchise. You get so many great characters for people in his life like Adrian, Mickey, Apollo, Paulie, and how his life changes. It really feels like one of these movies is like a different portion of his life, and I think that's so wonderful. Stallone makes him one of the most likable movie characters of all time that is so inspirational as well. At number 2, I have Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. His growth from the farm boy to the wise Jedi is so captivating, seeing his training with Ben and Yoda and how impatient he is at the start to gaining maturity shows so much growth with the character. He's reckless and headstrong in his goals, but he's also very loyal to his friends and driven to take down the Empire. He makes choices that are maybe very dangerous and could get him killed, but if his friends are in need, he needs to go, and he feels a lot too that makes him a really interesting, flawed character. His relationship with his father, Darth Vader, and how much hope he has that his father can be turned back to the light shows so much hope in him. His desire for more in life and trying to find his destiny makes him so relatable, and how he stares off at the sunsets and feels stuck. He's a character with so much promise and hope that learns more maturity and patience, and Mark Hamill shows all this so well. One of the best character arcs of all time. My favorite movie character of all time is Captain America. The MCU started my path of discovering more movies, and Steve Rogers always stood out to me as my favorite character. I love how much of a good man he is, loyal to his friends and his values. He doesn't like bullies, whether they're in an alley in Brooklyn or the Nazis taking over Europe. He fights for freedom and will do what he can to stick to his values, even when it gets him in trouble, even as the government he once had full trust in becomes corrupt. Even as he must go against the law to protect his friend, he can't sit by and let the wrong thing happen. Chris Evans brings the dedication and conviction of the character. He's so likable, such a strong and inspiring character to follow. His solo movies are my favorite in the MCU. His adventures and how much he fights for the right thing and for freedom is so gripping. But I also love him in the Avengers and the friendships he forms there, and working with a team that saves the world so many times. And seeing him have to clash with Tony in Civil War is so sad because of how invested in the characters you are. And ending his arc, letting him get his happy ending with Peggy after sacrificing so much, was a great way to end things, and letting him save so many lives and get to live his life in the end. I love this character so much, and all they did with him throughout his time in the MCU. I'll be right back on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale, but first here's some more movie music, starting with F1 by Hans Zimmer from the F1 the Movie soundtrack. Welcome back to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. Closing out the show today, I'm going to give you my 3 throwback recommendations for this week. Every week I like to take 3 movies from years past that I love to recommend and give a little review recommendation on them. This week, my first throwback recommendation is 1988's Mississippi Burning. Directed by Alan Parker, it stars Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe as a pair of FBI agents with wildly different styles who are sent to Mississippi in the 1960s to investigate the disappearance of 3 civil rights activists. You gotta love small-town investigation movies like this. Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe are so well matched here, and their characters are so perfectly different from each other. Gene Hackman's character is very charismatic and fearless, and his investigative style is so off the book and about action being more effective than going through the proper procedure. Dafoe's character is so much more by the book and no nonsense and is trying to solve this case following more of the rules. Their clashes over their differences and how they disagree on many decisions throughout the case, on what rules to break and when to take action over getting permission first, makes their dynamic so tense, even as they are after the same goal in this story. The performances bring their differing personalities to life so effectively, you believe so much that they would frustrate each other so much, especially as they are dealing with an already complicated and horrible case that they, as much as they disagree, are both appalled by. And where they are similar really makes you get invested in their story as well. They both despise racism and Jim Crow, so even as they disagree on their methods, the passion and fury that they show in their pursuit for justice is the same. There's scenes where they are trying to be silenced by this corrupt town, and they both know the importance of this case, that even as they disagree with each other on many things, their shared valuing of justice makes them firm in solving this thing together. And like a lot of these kind of detective movies, it deals a lot with the local community and outsiders uncovering all this sinister activity this place not only allows to happen, but is involved in the crimes as well. In this movie, it's based on a true story and deals a lot with the horrible racism and violence of the 1960s South and the KKK. And that really gives the movie so much historical background that makes it even more engaging. The fact that 3 people can be murdered in this fashion and almost everyone in the town being cool with it, and how much racism and hate exists here makes this setting so dangerous and terrible. The way the detectives will be talked down to and demanded to stop investigating, supposedly in the name of not bothering the town's way of life, is so awful and speaks to the nature of this place. Some scenes get so violent and graphic in these acts of racial violence and how needlessly and brutally people were attacked just for the color of their skin. The setting and racism element of the story really makes it so tragic and gives the story such high importance. This is a great detective and historical movie that has 2 really interesting lead investigators that makes the investigation and racial issue sides of the story so captivating. My next throwback recommendation for this week is 1997's Gattaca. Directed by Andrew Niccol, it takes place in a future where society is divided by valid and invalid genes, and an invalid man named Vincent, played by Ethan Hawke, assumes the identity of a valid man named Jerome, played by Jude Law, in order to pursue his dream of space travel, which his invalid status disqualifies him from doing. Gattaca is such a great sci-fi movie that is a tense thriller and has so much to say on humanity. Ethan Hawke as Vincent is great to follow. He's this man that's been told by society that his genetics make him unable to do the things he dreams of doing, that his imperfections are barriers that he has no hope of making it over. But the character has so much determination and belief in his dream that he is able to defy this society with this plan with Jude Law's character, and how he's able to do all these great things despite living in this world that would have never even given him the chance had they known his true identity is really inspiring. It's a great criticism of the idea of genetic superiority and how in this world it's been implemented so harshly in society that great men with so much potential to do amazing things like Vincent are dismissed at birth and never given a chance, and how limiting this would be for humanity. And the idea of defying expectations and having all this belief in yourself and what you can accomplish despite society telling you your limits makes the story so emotional. Jude Law is also great here, and his character is really sad and has a really interesting relationship with Vincent that ties into the idea of dreams and goals, and the admiration he has for Vincent makes the relationship so captivating. The movie also has a number of murder mystery elements that becomes really exciting. It gives some more tension to the story that has more danger that Vincent must overcome and expands the world of the police and administrative side of the world as well. The world is brought to life so well, the sets and shininess of the world with all this futuristic technology and these very clean and sterile rooms make it otherworldly, but it ties into the society as well that's obsessed with perfection, and that look really makes that theme come through even more. Overall, Gattaca is such a smart sci-fi movie that builds a world that perfectly criticizes genetic superiority, and Ethan Hawke as the lead inspires optimism and determination in your dreams that spits in the face of everything this world has decided about him. It's a bit of a thriller, it's a lot of sci-fi, and the story is so emotional. My third throwback recommendation for this week is 2014's Chef. Directed, written by, and starring Jon Favreau, it follows a head chef named Carl who quits his job and starts a food truck with his son and best friend, refining his creativity while piecing back together his estranged family. This movie is so pleasant. It starts off pretty nasty, as Carl is stuck in a rut in life with being unfulfilled creatively at his job and feeling like he can't live up to his promise there. It gets pretty intense in the kitchen scenes and all the arguments that come from his desire to take more risks while the owner wants him to make the same things every night. He also has a strained relationship with his son that ends up helping him start the food truck, but he starts the movie off very impatient with him and not really trying to understand him that much. But as it goes, the story gets really nice and makes the struggle in the beginning so necessary to see how far he comes. This movie captures so perfectly the feeling of finding your passion and the feeling you get as you're doing something that you realize is what you were meant to do, and really questioning where you're at in life and realizing there really was always something out there for you is so inspiring. Favreau is great, and as someone that has really found my stride in talking about movies and wanting to do more in this space, his struggle to finding what you're supposed to do is really relatable. And it's also a struggle that transcends age, that it's never too late to find your passion or rediscover it, and there's always something out there for you that you can achieve. His relationship with his son is also sweet and gets some really nice development during the story that shows the growth of the characters. It captures this fun vibe so well of being on this trip, doing something you love with people you love that just makes you want to take your goals in life and go for them, and trying to find a way to take what you love and do amazing things with it. The cooking scenes and shooting of these scenes is also so good. The way it uses music and the texture of all the food and sauces makes you so hungry. It's a story that doesn't have to be about a chef necessarily, but that element of the story was really enjoyable and makes the whole food truck and food culture vibe feel so alive and energetic that makes the movie really entertaining. Overall, I really like this movie. Favreau's passion for it absolutely comes through in his direction, writing, and performance, and the father-son relationship and the personal journey of rediscovering your passion is so inspiring. I'll be right back to close out the show, but first here's some more movie music, starting with Suds on the Roof by Thomas Newman from the Shawshank Redemption soundtrack. That's going to be it for me this week on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. I'll be back next week with a review for Black Phone 2 and some other movie talk, but until then, have a great week.